My daughter called me trash after I raised her alone for 17 years when she asked her mom's lover to walk her down the aisle instead of me. I blocked her and skipped her wedding. Now her marriage is a disaster and she's begging for help. But I hung up. I'm 51 years old. I'm a truck driver. And it's been like 3 weeks since I've slept well because I keep thinking about everything that happened with my daughter, Brianna. People tell me I did the right thing. Others tell me I'm a monster. But the truth is, I don't know what to think anymore. The only thing I know is that after 24 years of sacrificing myself for her, of giving her everything I had and more, she called me middle-class trash and told me I wasn't sophisticated enough for her new family. And that, friends, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But I guess I should start from the beginning. When I met Helen, we were like 20 years old. We both came from humble families. You know, the kind where you work from the moment you can walk and you learn that money doesn't grow on trees. We got married young, super in love, with a bunch of dreams but not a penny in our pockets. I was working construction back then, Helen was cleaning houses, and we thought that with hard work we were going to make it. And we did, or at least that's what I thought. When Brianna was born, everything changed. Obviously. Helen stopped working to stay home with the baby, and I took the truck driving job because it paid better. I worked like 14 hours a day, sometimes more, spent entire days on the road, but I didn't care, because every time I came home and saw my little girl run towards me screaming, "Daddy, Daddy," I felt like it was all worth it. Helen complained that I was never there, that I left her alone with everything, but I thought, well, someone has to pay the bills, right? Someone has to make sure there's food on the table and that Brianna has what she needs. Things were good, or at least stable, until Brianna turned 7. Helen got a part-time job at an upscale cafe. You know, one of those places where coffee costs like $5 and people go more to be seen than to drink coffee. I was happy. I thought it would be good for her to get out of the house, meet people, have her own money. What an idiot I was. Seriously. Turns out at that cafe she met Frederick, a guy like 60 years old, rich, super rich, the kind who have summer houses and luxury cars and all that. And Helen, my wife, my daughter's mother, started an affair with him. I didn't realize it right away, obviously. I was working all the time. I trusted her completely. But I started noticing weird things, like she'd come home late. She always had her phone glued to her hand. Suddenly, she cared a lot about how she looked. One day, I came home earlier than usual and found her getting ready to go out. I asked her where she was going and she said to have drinks with some friends from work. Brianna was in the living room watching TV and I stayed with her. Helen came home like at 2 in the morning, completely drunk, and that's when everything exploded. She sat down at the kitchen table. I was furious, like I had never seen her like that. And I asked her what the hell was going on, and she, just, like that, no anesthesia, told me she'd been seeing Frederick for months, that she was in love with him, that she wanted a divorce. I just stood there, unable to believe what I was hearing. My hands were shaking and I felt like someone had kicked me in the stomach. I asked her about Brianna, our daughter. Remember her? And Helen looked at me like I was the crazy one, and said that obviously Brianna would stay with me because Frederick didn't want kids in his house. Just like that, you know. Like she was talking about who gets the couch or the TV. What came next was hell. Helen left the house that same night. She didn't even fight for custody of Brianna. She literally left her with me like she was a piece of furniture she didn't want anymore. I had to explain to a 7-year-old girl why her mom had left, why she didn't live with us anymore. Brianna cried every night, asking when Mommy was coming back, and I didn't know what to tell her. I made up excuses for her, that Mommy was working a lot, that Mommy needed some time, anything to avoid having to tell her the truth, that her mother had abandoned us for a guy with money. On the next 17 years, I basically spent raising Brianna alone. I worked my truck, driving shifts. Sometimes I had to leave her with neighbors or with my sister when I had long trips. But I always came back. Always. I went to all her school events. I helped her with homework, even though I'd arrive dead tired. I took her to the doctor. I cooked for her, washed her clothes, everything. We didn't have much money. Obviously, With a single salary and raising a girl alone, things were tight, but she never lacked anything essential. Maybe she didn't have the brand name clothes her classmates wore. Maybe we didn't go on vacations to fancy places, but we had a house, food, and I was always there for her. Helen, meanwhile, continued with Frederick. He never married her. That's the funny thing. Well, not funny, but you know what I mean. He kept her as his permanent mistress, gave her money, paid for an apartment, but never made her his wife. And Helen, I guess to compensate for her guilt, or to compete with me, or, who knows why, started filling Brianna with expensive gifts. Every time she saw Brianna, which was like once a month if that, she'd arrive with bags from fancy stores, designer clothes, expensive gadgets, everything I couldn't give her. And Brianna, well, she was a kid. Obviously, she loved it. Looking back, I should have set boundaries from the beginning. I should have told Helen to stop trying to buy Brianna's love. But I didn't, because, honestly, I felt bad that my daughter didn't have nice things. I thought that at least this way, she could have something. You know, even though her mom had abandoned her. How stupid I was, seriously. Things got worse when Brianna turned 18. She started spending more time with Helen and Frederick, going to their fancy dinners, meeting their rich people, and every time she came back home to me, she looked at me differently. I was no longer Dad who saved her. I was Dad, the truck driver who lived in a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood. I could see how she looked at me, like she suddenly realized we weren't the same as the people Helen surrounded her with. I tried to talk to her, tell her that money isn't everything, that what matters is being there for each other. But she was already dazzled by that world. Brianna studied to be a hairstylist. She graduated like 2 years ago and got a job at an upscale salon. That's where she met Jason, her now husband. Jason comes from a rich family, very rich, very traditional, one of those families that have family trees and traditions and all that stuff. They got engaged last year and Brianna was super excited planning the wedding. I was excited too. I mean, she's my only daughter, my baby, the girl I raised alone for 17 years. I thought we were finally going to have a nice moment together, that maybe the wedding would bring us closer. Again. Like 4 months ago, Brianna came to the house. I had made her favorite food. Like I was making an effort because lately we barely saw each other, and I thought we could spend quality time together. We were eating when she told me, "Dad, I need to talk to you about the wedding." I got excited. I thought she was going to ask me to walk her down the aisle. You know, that moment all fathers wait for. But instead, she told me that she and Jason had decided they weren't going to do the tradition of the father walking the bride down the aisle because they thought it was patriarchal and outdated. I stayed quiet. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I'd been slapped, but I tried to be understanding. I told her it was okay, that I respected her decision, that what mattered was that she was happy. She seemed relieved, and we kept talking about other wedding details. I kept making plans in my head, thinking that even though I couldn't walk her down the aisle, at least I'd be there. I'd see my daughter get married, we'd dance the father-daughter dance, all those things. But then, like 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine who knows someone who works at the venue where the wedding was going to be called me. He told me, "Kevin, I don't know if you already know this, but your daughter requested that Frederick be the one to walk her down the aisle." I thought I'd heard wrong. I asked him to repeat it, and he confirmed it. Brianna had arranged for Frederick, the guy who screwed my wife and destroyed my family, the guy who never even bothered to meet her when she was a child, to have the honor that should be mine. I called Brianna immediately. I was shaking, like I'd never been so angry in my life. I asked her if what I'd heard was true. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and then she said, "Dad, I can explain." I told her, "Yes, please. Explain to me how the man who destroyed our family is going to walk you down the aisle while I sit in the audience like just another guest." And that's when she said something I'll never be able to forget. She told me, "Dad, Jason's family is very traditional, very sophisticated, and you're a truck driver. Frederick is successful, he has class, he knows how to behave in those environments. You're just a middle-class piece of trash who would embarrass Jason in front of his family. I can't risk you ruining my wedding by being yourself." I stood there with the phone in my hand, unable to believe what I'd just heard. My daughter, the girl I raised alone, the one I gave everything I had to, had just called me trash. She told me she was ashamed of me, that I wasn't good enough to be at her wedding. I felt like someone had ripped my heart out of my chest, literally. I asked her if that's really what she thought of me, after everything I'd done for her. And she said, "Dad, don't make this difficult. Just accept that this isn't your world and let me have my perfect day." I told her, "You know what, Brianna? You're right. This isn't my world. And I'm not going to your wedding. I'm not going to sit there and watch you give Frederick the place that belongs to me. I'm not going to pretend it's okay that you treat me like I'm an embarrassment after I sacrificed my entire life for you." And I hung up. Brianna called me like 1,000 times after that. I sent her a message telling her I wasn't going to change my mind, that if I wasn't good enough to walk her down the aisle, then I wasn't good enough to be at her wedding at all. And then I blocked her. I blocked her on everything: phone, social media, email, everything. My friends asked me if I was sure, if I wasn't going to regret it, but I told them, after 24 years of being treated like a second-class citizen by my own daughter, enough is enough. I have to have some self-respect, right? On the wedding day, I stayed home. Some friends from the Truckers Club came to keep me company. We had some beers, watched the game. They tried to distract me, but I kept thinking about Brianna, imagining what the wedding would be like, if she'd look beautiful, if Frederick would be standing there like he had any right. I felt horrible. I'm not going to lie. But I also felt like I'd done the right thing by finally setting boundaries. What happened at the wedding, I found out later from various sources. Helen, Brianna's mom, showed up completely drunk. And when I say drunk, I mean she could barely walk straight. Apparently she arrived in a super provocative dress, totally inappropriate for a wedding, and during the ceremony she was flirting with Jason's dad in front of everyone. People were uncomfortable. Jason was mortified. Brianna tried to ignore it, but it was impossible not to notice that Helen was making a scene. But things got worse at the reception. Helen and Frederick had a massive fight in front of all the guests. She started yelling at him that he was a liar, that he'd never married her despite promising for years, that he'd been cheating on her with other women this whole time. Frederick tried to calm her down, but she was out of control, screaming all the dirty laundry of their relationship, how he'd used her, how she'd never been enough for him, everything. Jason's parents and most of the guests left, like they got up and walked out in the middle of the chaos. Brianna's perfect wedding turned into a total disaster. The next day, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, and it was Brianna, crying hysterically. Apparently, she'd grabbed a friend's phone to call me because I had her blocked. She told me, "Dad, please. I need your help. The wedding was a disaster. Jason's parents are furious. I don't know what to do. You have to help me fix this." And I stood there listening to her cry. This girl, who had called me trash 2 weeks ago, who had told me I was an embarrassment, and something inside me broke. I told her, "Brianna, you chose your family. You chose Helen and Frederick over me. You chose wealth and status over the dad who raised you alone for 17 years. And now you're seeing who those people you chose really are. I can't fix this for you. You have to live with the consequences of your decisions." And I hung up. I felt terrible afterwards, obviously. She's my daughter. I love her. But I was also so tired, so tired of being the one who's always there to fix everything while she treats me like I'm worth nothing. My friends told me I'd done the right thing, that sometimes you have to let people learn their lessons. But I still felt like crap. A few days later, I got an email from Brianna because she couldn't contact me any other way. It was long, like 3 pages. It started with her apologizing, saying she'd been horrible to me, that she realized now she'd made a mistake. But then, in the middle of the email, she started blaming me too. She said I should have been there for her anyway, that parents don't abandon their children no matter what, that it was my responsibility to save her from the disaster even if she'd treated me badly. It ended saying she hoped I could forgive her, but that I also needed to understand why she'd excluded me from the wedding because I didn't understand her world. I didn't respond. I don't even know what I'd say if I did. Part of me wants to forgive her. She's my daughter, after all. I watched her grow up. I changed her diapers. I helped her with homework. I comforted her when she had her first heartbreak. But another part of me is so tired, so hurt, that I don't know if I can trust her again. I don't know if I can open that door again, knowing she might treat me like trash again the next time it suits her. My friends from the Truckers Club have been amazing, honestly. They got me out of the house, took me for drives, introduced me to other guys in the local motorcycle club. I'd never had much time for hobbies or friends because I was always working or taking care of Brianna. But now that I have time, I'm discovering there's the whole life I missed. Last Saturday, I went on my first ride with the motorcycle club. We went to a bar in the next town over, and I had a good time, like really good. I hadn't laughed like that in years. One of the guys from the club, his name is Mike. He's like 55 years old. He told me he went through something similar with his son. He told me that sometimes you have to choose your own peace of mind over maintaining toxic relationships, even if they're with your own family. That blood doesn't give you the right to treat someone badly indefinitely. And that resonated with me, because it's exactly how I feel. I've spent 24 years putting Brianna first, sacrificing everything for her, and for what? So she can call me trash? So she can tell me I'm an embarrassment? Last week, the guys helped me create a profile on a dating app. They laughed at my photos, saying I needed better pictures, so we went out and they took like 50 photos of me with the motorcycle. I felt ridiculous, like I'm 51 years old. What am I doing on a dating app? But it also felt good, like I was starting a new chapter of my life. One where I don't have to apologize for being who I am, where I don't have to feel bad for not being rich or sophisticated. And you know what? I got a match. Her name is Casey. She's 47 years old, also divorced, has 2 kids who are already adults. We've been chatting and she seems normal. Someone real who's lived a real life and isn't looking for me to impress her with money or status. We're going for coffee this weekend. I'm nervous. I haven't been on a date in like 25 years, but I'm also excited. I feel like I'm finally living for myself for the first time in decades. I don't know what's going to happen with Brianna. Maybe someday she'll contact me again and really understand what she did to me. Maybe she'll never understand. Maybe I'll end up forgiving her eventually. Or maybe not. Honestly, I don't know. What I do know is that I can't keep being the one who always gives in, who always forgives, who's always there no matter how they treat me. I have to have some respect for myself, right? Yesterday I was driving my truck, doing my normal route, and I started thinking about my whole life. About how I married Helen Young, how I worked like a mule to support my family, how I was left alone with Brianna when Helen abandoned us, how I sacrificed everything for that girl, and I realized that I've spent my entire adult life living for other people. First for Helen, then for Brianna, and I never really asked myself what I wanted, who I was beyond being a husband or father. Mike from the motorcycle club told me something I can't get out of my head. He told me, "Kevin, you gave your daughter wings to fly. Now she has to decide if she flies back to you or not. But in the meantime, you also have wings, brother. Use them." And he's right, I guess. I've been so focused on being the perfect father that I forgot I'm also a person with my own life, my own dreams, my own worth that doesn't depend on whether my daughter appreciates me or not. The date with Casey is this Friday. The guys helped me choose what to wear. I made fun of them for being worse than a bunch of teenagers, but honestly, I like having this kind of camaraderie. I like having friends who care about me, who want me to be happy. It's weird, after so many years of being alone, of not having time for anything but work and Brianna, but it's good. It's really good. I don't know if things with Casey are going to work out. Probably not. Like it's a first date after 25 years, the odds aren't in my favor. But what matters is that I'm trying. I'm moving forward. I'm learning that it's okay to set boundaries, that it's okay to say no, that it's okay to choose myself for once. And that, after everything that happened, feels like a small victory.